The hook is in the title they'll never see. One remembered the date. The other remembered the fight. I remember the exact texture of the silence that night. It wasn't empty. It was thick, like held breath. We were in her kitchen, the only light a dim glow from a stove hood, painting everything in soft, amber edges. I was leaning against the counter, watching her. Eleanor. She was mid-40s, grace etched into the way she moved, a slow, deliberate pouring of wine, the smooth arc of her wrist. Confidence was her default language. But tonight, there was a vulnerability in the set of her shoulders, a slight inward curve. She'd hosted a dinner party, a whirl of her lawyer friends and gallery owners, her world. I was the anomaly, the younger man she'd invited on a whim, the graduate student who'd fixed her ancient printer at the university library. Now, the guests were echoes of laughter in the hall, taillights disappearing down the rain-slicked street. "You stayed," she said, not turning around. Her voice was a low, warm thing in the quiet. "You didn't tell me to leave." A small, almost imperceptible shake of her head. She brought 2 glasses over, her fingers brushing mine as she handed one to me. The touch was a static shock, a jolt that traveled straight to my spine. She didn't pull away immediately. Her skin was cool from the glass, smooth. I could smell her perfume, something with bergamot and rain, and under it, the faint, clean scent of her soap. "I talk too much at those things," she said, her eyes finally meeting mine. They were a complicated gray-green, the color of a storm over the sea. "Perform. It's exhausting." "You were brilliant," I said, and I meant it. I'd watched her command the room, her intelligence a sharp, captivating light, a soft, self-deprecating twist of her lips. "Brilliant as a performance." She took a sip of wine, her eyes holding mine over the rim of the glass. The look was a question, an acknowledgment of the strange, charged bubble we now inhabited. The air between us hummed. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I was hyper-aware of everything. The faint line of her collarbone above her silk blouse, the way a strand of dark hair, shot through with a single, elegant silver streak, had escaped its twist and curled against her neck. I wanted to tuck it back. I didn't dare. She took a half-step closer, not into my space, but near enough that the warmth from her body reached me. The kitchen felt suddenly small, intimate. The world outside the windows ceased to exist. "You're very quiet, Leo," she murmured. My name in her mouth was a different word altogether. I swallowed my throat tight. "Remembering." A faint, curious tilt of her head. "Remembering what?" "This," I thought. "The way the light catches the curve of your lip. The precise distance between your hand and mine on this cold granite. The terrifying, wonderful possibility in this silence." But before I could fumble for an answer, the sharp, sudden buzz of her phone on the counter shattered the moment. We both flinched. The screen lit up, casting a blue-white wedge across her face. A name flashed. David, her husband, who was, according to her earlier offhand comment, at a conference in Geneva. Her eyes flicked from the screen to my face, and in that split second, I saw it. A flash of something like panic, instantly schooled into blankness. The charged air didn't dissipate, it curdled. The door to the world outside hadn't just opened, it had been kicked in. She didn't answer the phone. She watched it vibrate to voicemail, the silence after it stopped somehow louder than the buzz. That blankness on her face fractured, revealing a layer of weariness so deep it seemed to soften the very bones beneath her skin. "David," she said. The name a flat stone dropped between us. She picked up the glass again, her knuckles pale. "He likes to check in. Ensure the household is still standing in his absence." It was more information than she'd given all evening. I said nothing, just waited. My own father had been like that, a curator of appearances, a manager of people. I knew the taste of that particular loneliness. "He's a good man," she continued, but the words sounded rehearsed, pulled from a drawer. "Very presentable." Her gaze drifted to the dark window, seeing something else. "We've been married for 18 years. It's a comfortable house." She didn't say home. I understood then. Her confidence was an armor. It was the beautiful facade of a meticulously kept museum. And inside, the rooms were quiet. "You don't have to explain," I said, my voice lower than I intended. Her eyes snapped back to me, sharp, assessing. Don't I? You're standing in my kitchen at midnight, Leo. You're 24. I could be your... She trailed off, a faint blush coloring her neck. Teacher. Professor. The unsaid words of our first meeting. The taboo wasn't just the age. It was the entire architecture of her life I was leaning against. I'm just a guy who fixed a printer, I said, attempting a smile that felt shaky. No, the word was soft, definitive. You're not. She moved then, not away, but to the sink, placing her glass down with a quiet click. I watched the line of her back, the way her silk blouse tightened across her shoulders. When she turned, she was closer than before. The scent of bergamot and rain enveloped me. I noticed things, I admitted, the confession leaving me in a rush. The way you touch your necklace when you're thinking. How you laugh with your whole face when you forget to be careful. The silver streak in your hair right here. My hand lifted, of its own volition, stopping a breath away from her temple. She didn't flinch. Her chest rose and fell, a quick, shallow rhythm. Her eyes were wide, stormy seas churning. You shouldn't notice those things, she whispered, but she was leaning into the space where my hand hovered, a silent contradiction. I can't stop. Her breath brushed my jaw, warm and tasting of red wine. The air was pure electricity, a live wire strung between our almost touch. Then, her fingers found mine in the dim space between our bodies. Not holding, just aligning, skin to skin. A connection so simple it shattered every careful boundary in the room. For a long, suspended moment, there was only the feel of her hand against mine, and the terrifying, glorious understanding that neither of us would be the one to pull away first. The sound of a key scraping in the front door lock was a gunshot in the quiet. We sprang apart, my hand falling to my side, hers flying to her throat. The connection severed, leaving a phantom burn on my skin. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded her eyes. The cleaner, she breathed, the words barely audible. She has a key for Fridays. It's Thursday. Heavy footsteps sounded in the hallway. Eleanor's gaze darted around the kitchen, a trapped animal's look. There was no reason for us to be guilty, and yet we were drenched in it. A woman's voice called out, cheerful and loud. Eleanor, love, left my umbrella here this afternoon. Hope I'm not. Maggie, a friend from the dinner party, bustled into the kitchen doorway. She stopped, her smile freezing, then melting into something curious and razor-sharp. Her eyes ping-ponged between us, taking in the intimate dimness, the 2 wine glasses, the 3 feet of charged space that felt like a mile and an inch. Oh, Maggie said, a world of implication in the syllable. I'm interrupting. Not at all, Eleanor said, her voice miraculously smooth, the hostess mask sliding back into place with an almost audible click. Leo was just helping me clear the last of the glasses. Maggie, you remember Leo? From the library, Maggie said, her smile not reaching her eyes. She looked at me, a slow, appraising sweep. I do. How nice of you to stay and help. The silence that followed was a minefield. I could feel the weight of Maggie's assumptions, the story already writing itself in her head. The younger man, the midnight kitchen, the absent husband. I was just leaving, I said, the words ash in my mouth. No, don't rush on my account, Maggie trilled, but she was already moving to fetch her garish polka-dot umbrella from a closet. Just a quick in and out. Eleanor didn't look at me. Her posture was rigid, her smile fixed. The woman who'd aligned her fingers with mine was gone, locked away. Maggie left with a wave and a final, lingering look. The front door shut. The echo of it seemed to vibrate in the air. The performance was over. Eleanor's shoulders slumped. She wrapped her arms around herself, not facing me. You should go. It was the right thing. The only thing. I took a step toward the hallway. Then I stopped. I couldn't leave it like this, in shame, in fear of Maggie's gossip. I turned back. She was already looking at me, the raw, unguarded longing in her eyes mirroring the ache in my own chest. All the resistance crumbled. In 2 strides I was before her. My hand came up, cupping her jaw, my thumb brushing the high curve of her cheekbone. Her breath hitched. Our faces were inches apart. I could see the fine lines at the corners of her eyes, the pulse fluttering in her throat. Her lips parted. "Eleanor," I whispered, a plea and a confession. She didn't pull back. She leaned her cheek into my palm, her eyes closing, a single, silent tear escaping. She was trembling. We were a breath from the point of no return, hovering on the cliff's edge, gravity pulling us together even as every sensible bone in our bodies screamed to step away. The tear was a scalding track against my thumb. It shattered the last of my restraint. "I think about you," I said, the words raw, torn from a place deeper than fear. "When I'm shelving books, when I'm supposed to be reading, I see the spine of a poetry collection, and I wonder if you've held it. I hear laughter in the corridor, and I listen for yours." Her eyes opened. The storm in them was raging. She didn't stop me. "This isn't a whim," I continued, my voice a low, rough thing near her ear. "It's an ache. And I know I shouldn't. I know the rules. Your life, your comfortable house." I echoed her words, and she flinched as if I'd touched a bruise. "But I'm here. And you're here. And we're not pretending right now." Her hand came up, covering mine where it still cupped her face. Her skin was so soft. Her fingers tightened, not pushing me away, but holding me there, anchoring herself. "Leo." It was a whisper full of conflict. "Tell me to leave," I challenged, my forehead nearly touching hers. Our breath mingled, warm and wine-scented. "Tell me this is a mistake. Tell me I'm a boy with a crush, and you'll forget this by morning." I felt the fight in her, the years of propriety, the weight of her marriage, the glaring, judgmental spotlight of the world. I saw it in the tense line of her jaw. And then I saw it break. Her free hand came up to my chest, fingers curling into the fabric of my shirt. Not to push, to pull. "I can't," she breathed, the confession sounding like it hurt. "I can't tell you that, because I won't forget." Her gaze dropped to my mouth, then back to my eyes, a silent, devastating admission. "I haven't been seen in so long. Not like this. Not until you looked at me." It was the permission I hadn't dared to hope for. The world narrowed to the space between our lips. I could feel the heat coming off her, the slight tremble in her body that matched my own. My other hand found the small of her back, drawing her the final inch closer until she was leaning into me, her body a soft, yielding line against mine. Every sense was screaming. The scent of her, the feel of silk under my palm, the quiet sound of her breathing, the visual poetry of her face, so close. My gaze flicked to her lips, then back to her eyes, a final, silent question. Her answer was the slightest forward tilt of her chin, the barest parting of her lips. Her eyes fluttered shut. The kiss was a heartbeat away. The point of no return was now a line under our feet. All it would take was the slightest movement, the surrender to gravity. And then, from the hallway, her phone began to ring again. Not a buzz. A shrill, insistent trill. "David." This time, it didn't stop. The phone was a siren. It carved through the charged silence, a relentless, mechanical heartbeat. Eleanor jerked back as if scalded, her hand falling from my chest. The spell broke into 1,000 sharp pieces. She stared toward the sound, her face pale. "He never calls twice," she whispered, more to herself than to me. The words were laced with a new, different fear. The ringing stopped. The voicemail click was audible in the utter quiet. A second later, her text tone chimed, a single, polite bird call that felt obscenely normal. She didn't move to check it. She just stood there, wrapped in the ghost of my arms, looking utterly lost. The confident woman from the dinner party was gone. The vulnerable woman who'd leaned into my touch was receding. Someone else was taking her place, someone cornered. "Eleanor," I said softly. She finally looked at me, and the truth was there in her eyes before she spoke it. It wasn't just guilt. It was something darker, more immediate. "He wasn't supposed to be back until Sunday," she said, her voice hollow. "The conference, it was a cover. He's seeing someone. Has been. For months." She gave a short, brittle laugh that held no humor. "We had a fight about it this morning. A terrible one. That's why I invited you tonight. Not you, specifically, but everyone. To fill the quiet. to prove I was fine. The revelation landed like a physical blow. I wasn't a discovery. I was a distraction, a pawn in a silent marital war. The intimacy of the last hour curdled, tainted by a history I hadn't known. I took a step back. The space between us felt icy. So this, I gestured to the space where we'd almost kissed, was just filling the quiet. No, the word was a whip crack. She closed the distance I'd created, her hands coming up as if to grasp my arms. But she stopped, fists clenched at her sides. No, that's what the party was. This is the thing that scared me. This is real. And it's messy, and it's wrong, and it's the most alive I've felt in years. Her confession hung between us, raw and trembling. She was using me in a way, but she was also offering me the jagged, broken truth of her. It wasn't clean. It wasn't simple. It was human. The text tone chirped again, insistent. She didn't look away from me. A silent battle raged across her face. Fear, desire, shame. A desperate, clawing need for something real. Then, her shoulders straightened. A resolve, hard and final, settled in her eyes. She reached out, not for her phone, but for my hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was firm. "He's on his way home," she said, her voice low and surprisingly steady. He texted, "He's at the airport." My heart hammered against my ribs. Then I should go. Yes. She nodded, but she didn't release my hand. Instead, she pulled me gently, steadily, not toward the front door, but toward the darkened hallway that led deeper into the house. But not yet. She led me not to a bedroom, but to a small, book-lined study at the back of the house. The only light spilled in from the hallway, painting the room in long, distorted shadows. The air smelled of old paper and the faint, lingering trace of her perfume. She closed the door softly. The click of the latch was the loudest sound in the world. We stood in the near dark, facing each other. The space was a vacuum, holding only the two of us and the weight of what came next. Her husband was a phantom in the air, a countdown clock ticking toward the airport. "This is it," she whispered. Her voice was barely a breath. "The moment we decide." I could see the outline of her, the elegant slope of her neck, the way her hands were clasped tightly in front of her. I was trembling. So was she. "I don't want to be your revenge," I said, the words scraping my throat. "Or your escape. You're not." She took a single step forward, closing the gap until the heat from her body was a tangible force against mine. I could feel the whisper of her silk blouse against my shirt. "You're the complication I never saw coming. The one that makes all the careful plans feel like a lie." Her hand rose, her fingertips tracing the air beside my jaw, not touching, but mapping the distance. "I am 46 years old, Leo. My life is a series of solved problems and managed expectations. You are an unsolvable equation. A beautiful, terrifying question." I caught her hand, finally, pressing her palm flat against my chest, over my pounding heart. "Feel that? That's the answer. It's messy. It's illogical. It's real." A choked sound escaped her, part sob, part laugh. In the dim light, I saw the gleam of tears on her cheeks. She leaned her forehead against my shoulder, her body sagging into mine for a moment, not with passion, but with a profound, bone-deep weariness. I held her, my arms wrapping around her, feeling the delicate architecture of her spine. She looked up, her face so close our noses almost brushed. "I'm scared." "Me too." It was the truest thing we'd said all night. In that shared fear, the last pretense fell away. This wasn't a seduction. It was a mutual surrender. Her gaze held mine, and in it, I saw the full, unvarnished truth. The regret for a life half-lived, the longing for something true, the terrifying courage to reach for it now, here, in the dark. I saw myself reflected in her eyes, not a boy, but the man who had somehow become her impossible choice. She understood me. I understood her. Flawed, frightened, yearning. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, I lowered my head. Our lips met. It was not a frantic, hungry kiss. It was soft. A question finally answered. A seal on a confession. A quiet, devastating point of no return. When we finally parted, it was only by a breath. We stayed there, foreheads touching, in the silent study, as the world outside, with its husbands and flights and expectations, continued to turn without us. We had chosen, and we both knew, nothing would ever be the same. We didn't speak. Words had run their course, leaving only the quiet, shared reality of our choice. She slid her hand down my arm until her fingers intertwined with mine. A simple, grounding clasp. Her skin was warm now. The earlier tremble subsided into a steady, resolved pulse. "He'll be here soon," she said finally, her voice soft but clear, no longer laced with panic. I nodded, my thumb brushing over her knuckles. "I know. I have to face him. Not tonight, perhaps, but I have to." She looked down at our joined hands, a faint, wondering smile touching her lips. I spent so long being afraid of the mess, of the scandal, of what people would say about the older woman and the boy. And now, she looked up, her eyes clear. "Now I think let them talk. The truth is here." She squeezed my hand. "It's messy. It's complicated. And it's mine." There was no grand declaration of forever. No promises we couldn't keep. There was just this, a study in shadows, the scent of old books and new beginnings, and the profound relief of no longer hiding. I brought her hand to my lips and pressed a kiss to her palm, a silent vow. Then I leaned in and kissed her forehead, a gesture of tenderness that felt more intimate than anything before. She sighed, a release of breath she seemed to have been holding for years, and let her head rest against my shoulder. We stood like that for a long time, wrapped in a quiet that was no longer tense, but peaceful. The world with its complications waited outside the door, but in this room, we had found a fragile, undeniable peace. It wasn't an end, but a beginning, one built not on fantasy, but on the raw, flawed, beautiful truth of seeing and being seen. Finally, she pulled back just enough to look at me. "You should go out the garden gate. I'll call you tomorrow." "Okay." One last, lingering look, a look that held the memory of the kiss, the weight of the confession, and the tentative hope for what came next, and I turned to leave. As I reached the French doors leading to the garden, I glanced back. She was watching me, her figure framed by the dim light of the hallway, not smiling, but with a face finally at rest. She lifted her hand in a small, silent wave. I stepped out into the cool night air, the taste of her still on my lips, the warmth of her hand still imprinted on mine. It wasn't a perfect happy ending. It was something better. It was real. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?